Hello and welcome to another episode of Teppou Republic. On the last episode, we saw a battle against the Takatsuki forces led by Takayuki. Our old ally, now an enemy, was engaged in battle to decide the issue. The enemy forces were thrown into disorder and heavily damaged by naval artillery and regular artillery as they approached our lines, and were then quite easily defeated in a conventional battle. Following this, I decided to pull Takayuki back from his attack against the Takatsuki to consolidate some more forces before I went on to attack Harima province. Meanwhile, up in North Shinano, the Nagoka led a massive attack against the castle defended by Tanenao, with Kodama coming in as reinforcements. The enemy's attack was pretty powerful and Tanenao's forces took some pretty substantial losses, but over time we managed to grind the enemy down, and the eventual arrival of Kodama's reinforcements gave us a numerical advantage that tipped the battle in our favour and led to a fairly substantial victory in the end. Following this, the Sunpu forces in North Shinano decided to rally together and lead a suicidal attack against the castle, effectively erasing themselves and meaning North Shinano is now pretty secure. Finally, we saw Takemichi raid Noto, the last Okazaki stronghold, destroying their clan and capturing as a new province. Now let's continue. In a movement like this, the need for individual heroes seems like it should be downplayed, relegated to the masses of people who really make a difference. But for many, these are hopeless times, during which heroes seem to be a natural beacon that guides them. As such, I don't think we should hold back anymore from praising the work of individuals in progressing the revolution. Takemichi already has a fair share of the limelight, but I say give him more. I'm confident that it is his personal loyalty and leadership that has kept his men alive through the extremely hard fighting in his holdings. If anyone has embodied revolutionary vigour, it is him. The other hero should be Harinaga, the man who forsook his vows to the feudal system to join us, an immensely strong personal decision that demonstrates to everyone how the obligations of the old ways don't need to hold any sway. Of course, being the instigator of all this, I myself have a role to play in setting good examples. I have seen a number of battles myself, but never the types of heroic action enjoyed by the others. In fact, I think I might need to take action to show I've still got it. Settling the feud with the Takatsuki would almost certainly make for a good front page story. Why don't you take the picture for it now? So we're in the aftermath of Takemichi capturing Noto from the Okazaki, and I realised that the general northern area of the Su-domain is on fire for the most part. You can see there's smoke raising from loads of the different cities and infrastructure points, and I decided that now things are beginning to get more peaceful in these regions, it's time to invest the money in getting everything repaired. There was no point doing it whilst the Okazaki was still around, because their armies were just going to raid the infrastructure again if I repaired it. So now that things are safer, I can start doing the relatively expensive repairs needed to rejuvenate the economies in these areas. I'm also going to get rid of these Okazaki rebels, because they of course could go and destroy the infrastructure as well. Takemichi is well placed to simply wipe them out there on the beaches in western Noto. So that means the Okazaki are now completely gone for good and Takemichi's area is secure. But for an enemy navy hanging around, and that navy of course is also able to damage infrastructure. But for now I'm just going to pretend it's not there and try and get as much stuff repaired as possible. Noto is going to have public order problems, so it'll take some time to start converting it to our rebellious ways, and then hopefully it'll calm down. The Nagoka move a single regiment into North Shinano, not sure what they're planning there, quite mysterious. There seems to be an invasion building up near Tamba. There's some Yonago forces and then another clan whom I don't know the name of. The Yonago are moving into Tamba with an army, so it looks like they definitely intend to invade Tamba and not Wakasa. Meanwhile, the Yonago forces in Umi move down towards the city, just like the forces that previously did this, and they face the exact same fate. Takahisa ambushes them, so it's time to attempt to wipe out the second half of the Yonago's fairly dangerous invasion of the Inner Tsu territories. Things should be relatively easy. We go onto the battle map and you can see it's a misty day, absolutely perfect for an ambush. My forces start by just rushing up to try and form a firing line right next to their column. The enemy respond with all of their fire rockets. They have loads of fire rocket guys. They completely bombard the left side of my line. The line almost breaks because those fire rockets do such extreme morale damage. We also take a fair number of actual casualties just because there were so many rockets. The enemy are going to bombard me throughout the battle with those fire rocket guys. Unfortunately, I placed my cavalry at the front of their column rather than the back, which was very inconvenient. If I had my cavalry at the back, I could have taken them out straight away. Meanwhile, the centre of the enemy's army starts to form up for a line battle with my main line. It's going to be a fairly fair engagement. However, my artillery, as we saw there, is going to be bombarding them the whole time. The artillery is up on this hill to the side of the battle. I have a single squad of zealots defending them, as well as these scouts, who are now falling back because the enemy's cavalry were attacking up the hill. But the zealots are well placed to stop those cavalry, and me, my artillery, can continue firing on the enemy's main line. My troops are going to be doing the same thing. The mist is impairing the accuracy of both sides, but I feel like I have a general advantage because the enemy does have some low-level units forming up in its line. Plus, I'm going to be gradually gaining a cavalry advantage. My cavalry are marauding around the back lines of the enemy. Here you can see my cavalry trying to take out some of the enemy's cavalry, but are being caught up by spears, so I have to get them out of there. And here I finally get a free unit of cavalry to come right around to the back of the enemy's line and destroy those fire rocket guys. They're going to be wiped out extremely quickly by the cav. Luckily, none of my units actually broke. A lot of them went down to wavering because of the fire rockets. But now that they've stopped firing, their morale will begin to come back. You can see a fair number of bodies around here as well. That's where the fire rockets have been taking them out. So now with that threat removed, it's time to focus on the enemy's main infantry body. You can see here I have a few units, some carbine infantry here and some Yari attendants here, who come out in front of the line into extremely dangerous positions. As I recall, this was because they were pursuing fleeing units, and I wasn't paying attention to the main line because I was micromanaging the cavalry. So these guys have got themselves in a really deadly position. They're standing right in front of the enemy's firing line. The enemy are shooting into their flanks and taking them out. I eventually notice and tell them to get out of there, but it's already too late really. They've lost tons of men. But overall, the battle has almost been won by our forces. The zealots on the hill have come down to engage the enemy's missile units in the flank. That's going to be breaking up the enemy's left flank pretty well. My cavalry are also going to come and get involved in some of the melee combat against the enemy forces. Super close range, and here you can see my cavalry rush across the face of the enemy's firing line. A super dangerous move. Luckily, the enemy happened to be reloading as I went across, and it pays off. I managed to rout some of their units as a result of that close range cavalry charge. Some of the melee units who have charged out from my line to engage the enemy at close range by accident are now coming in quite useful, taking out the enemy by engaging missile guys in melee, which is always handy. The enemy are now in full retreat. The battle ends as a decisive victory for the two forces. It was a very quick battle and quite a messy one as well, but luckily Takahisa completely overpowered the Yonago army, meaning that now Umi is completely safe and Takahisa is ready to go on to other battlefronts. The last we heard of them, they were marching down the eastern shores of Lake Biwa, far into Tsu territory. They reported that their own scouts found no trace of Tsu forces between them and Umi, or even Iga. Now we have not received any reports for a week, meaning one of two things has happened. Either the Tsu cut off their riders and hence we don't know where they are now, or the Tsu were drawing them deep into their territory to ambush them. In the former case, we can only hope that they achieve great things. In the latter case, we can only pray that their deaths were swift and fitting of proud soldiers. We lost a few hundred troops, the enemy losing over 2,000. Overall, things were fine, especially because Takahisa is going to have to march a long way to get into any new fights, and on the way, he'll definitely regenerate all of those troops. He also levels up as a result of the battle, meaning he is now one of our highest ranking generals, despite having not fought many battles very recently. So perhaps we'll get him into an important fight soon, and his men will be able to test themselves on a true battlefront, perhaps on an offensive battle as well. Now moving on, the Edo forces moved the army that they had hanging around in North Shinano to go and attack the castle. Of course, it's ambushed by Kodama's force, which was lying in wait just outside the castle for just such an occasion. So now he's going to team up with Tanenao's forces. Unfortunately, Tanenao can't bring all the mortars he has, but he is going to be bringing these missile units. And Kodama only really has melee units in his army, so I do need to combine these forces together to get a balanced army, which according to the balance bar will be a match for the enemy's force, despite the fact my side is quite depleted. So the battle starts, I deploy right on the edge of the map and begin bombarding the enemy column with all of my artillery units, dealing some pretty hefty damage actually. The enemy are going to be spending some time bringing their men back from their marching column to create a formation at the bottom of this hill facing off against me. And for me that's absolutely fine. As they try and line up along this line here, they're going to be subjected to constant artillery fire, and I actually have quite a good number of artillery in this army because it's combining the artillery of two battle groups together. Now Tanenao, who's bringing in all of the missile units, is setting his men up in front of Kodama's initial deployment of spears. Kodama's missile units I've put off on this little echelon on the edge of the formation, intending to have the enemy advance towards the main line and have the echelon surround them, attacking the enemy's left flank with those missile units. So the enemy units are forming up. I at first thought they were going to charge their melee units whilst their missile ones stayed behind, but actually their melee units were just moving to form up in front of their missile units, which is more sensible. The unsensible thing is that the enemy are just standing here and taking my artillery fire, because they're waiting for all these units coming over the hill at the back to come and join their formation. And I was absolutely loving this because as they do, they're taking extreme losses due to artillery fire. Now after a couple of minutes of taking this, they decided to just forget about the rest of the men coming down the hill. A smart move, they're going to go right into the attack now and simply do it in two waves. They're going to have their main line attack first and have all the guys from the other end of the column slowly come in and join the fight. They're not advancing very quickly, they're advancing at a walking pace to begin with, which means they are going to be punished even more as more artillery comes in. I'm trying to target their general here in the centre using the artillery. I've already taken out half of his guards, but there is a rule which means the general can't be killed by artillery until he's lost a certain number of his bodyguards, and the number he has to lose is based on his current rank. So I didn't manage to kill him, but I killed a good number of them. The enemy's main cavalry regiment started advancing as well in front of the enemy's main force, and they became subject to fire from my sharpshooters and ninja sharpshooters who I have on my left flank. The squad attacking my right flank isn't going to have that problem, but it is going to have the problem of being shot by the main infantry lines just because it's come out in front of their own infantry, so they're focusing all of my fire onto themselves. And they're taking extreme losses from this. I was wondering whether they would actually reach my lines, but you can see they lose 90% of their men before they get close. The rest of them run away, even though I did move out some spears to receive them if they did get close. The main lines are now beginning to engage. I feel like my line has an advantage. It's somewhat depleted, and the enemy definitely has a chance to beat it in a sheer line battle. But the fact that I have the flank, and I'm going to be outflanking them as the battle goes on, means I was confident to just let my men duke it out in the middle. The enemy attempted some more cavalry charges as we're seeing here, but in both cases I met them with heavy fire and spears. Here you can see my matchlock militants taking out the enemy's cavalry at close range. It's been a long time since we saw matchlock militants fighting on our side, but they are still being put to good use, annihilating this enemy cav. The enemy are using archers with flaming arrows to try and demoralise those militants, but they're not having any of it. They're just going to stand there and take it, and we'll spend more time returning fire than running away, so the enemy's archers aren't going to have a very good time. Meanwhile, the enemy's line infantry are still taking artillery fire as they attempt to battle with my front line. The enemy doesn't have any artillery at all, meaning they can't really do anything about it. Unless they can break through my line and get to the artillery, they are going to have to just accept they're going to be under constant fire. Here you can see my sharpshooters on the left flank doing good damage against the enemy's centre whilst remaining far enough away to be unmolested themselves. In my centre we can see the enemy general here still alive, fighting in melee against some of my own melee units backed up by his own infantry, but they're starting to fall back. My own infantry took fair casualties in that fight, but of course the loss of Yari attendants is a common thing, nothing to worry about in this case. My units on my right flank have now outflanked the enemy centre and are firing into their units. Some of their units turned to face off against this echelon, and I decided to punish them by attacking them in the rear of my cavalry. That'll cause them to rout pretty quickly. A similar thing is happening on the enemy's right flank, where I've got a very small brigade of cavalry trying to hack their way through some enemy rifle attendants. I actually took fair losses amongst my own cavalry trying to do things like this, because the enemy gave them some close range bursts of fire. But at this point in the battle, there's nothing to worry about really. You can see the balance bar is super in our favour. The enemy still has units coming to join the fight, joining a fight where clearly they're losing. They're coming into battle and walking past their own units, rushing away in fear. My own cavalry are coming around to the back to attack them. I'm taking friendly fire from my artillery because I'm not paying close enough attention, but for the most part the artillery is taking out the enemy, dealing heavy damage to the enemy's routing units, further persuading them to rush from the field in fear, which is probably the best thing they can do in this situation because they didn't really have any hope. But this was an ambush, so they had no choice but to fight, and fortunately for us they have been roundly destroyed, which means North Shinano is now actually completely safe, something we can't have said for a very long time. Yonago is an old-fashioned kind of general. He gets stuck in and does the dirty work with his men, earning a deep respect from them that goes beyond just appreciating his skill as a general. The longer I spend with him, the more I see the rumours about him are untrue. He is clearly the most dedicated man in our domain, a man who sees no obstacle that hard work cannot overcome, a man who takes a barely trained bunch of attendants and shopkeepers and achieves great deeds against overwhelming odds. He is, I must say, becoming quite the role model for me. He is old enough to be my father after all. From the battle results, we can see things are pretty good for Kodama and Tanenao's men. We've destroyed the Edo force almost entirely, leaving just a few cavalry who run off there, but we'll get them later. We see there the Seido forces do a cheeky naval invasion, then the Yonazawa clan attacks North Shinano from the north. At first, as they advance towards the castle, a group of wooden cannons very cleverly decides to attempt to stage an ambush on them. I decline that ambush, and the Yonazawa army moves on to attack the castle itself. You can see we actually have a small advantage, well even a medium advantage you could say, that the castle itself is damaged and has open gates, which means in a field battle the advantage might not be so large. After a long period of deliberation, which I'll now cut out, I decided to auto-resolve this fight, because I thought actually the auto-resolve might go more in my favour than taking the effort to fight it out myself would. And the result is indeed extremely good. A couple of hundred casualties, thousands of enemy losses. The Yonazawa threat is removed entirely, and I believe their home provinces are quite far away, so it'll probably be a while before they send another stack down my way. So North Shinano is now truly safe. We finally got rid of all the threats to that area. The problem is this Seido force, which we can see here in Teppou. It's the same thing that happened previously actually. They land a force near the castle at Teppou, and last time they went straight for Hida, bypassing the castle itself. I don't know if that's their plan this time. They are looking at Hida as if that's where they plan to go. But I'm going to take the precaution and assume that they might attack Teppou, and so I want to pull Takamichi's forces back to the castle for now, and then if the Seido forces do move away, I'll simply pursue them. That was essentially what I did last time, and it worked then, so I have no reason to believe it won't work now. I have to do a little bit of fiddling around to get the public order all sorted out, because Noto of course is going through the transitionary phase into the independent mindset, which means there's going to be a lot of unrest there. Teppou is closer to being independent, so it's not so bad. It does have a lot of damage though, which is destroying its public order. Anyway, I'm going to clear out the castle at Teppou with some of the units who don't really need to be inside the castle in the event of a siege battle, like these cavalry and infantry who can simply walk up and join the battle once the fight starts. These wooden cannons, I don't really want them hanging around inside the castle, wasting up my slots for units, so I'm going to take them out as well and let Takamichi's main force defend the castle. So those wooden cannons won't actually take part in any fight that does happen. Takamichi could attack the Seido right now, but I decided I don't need to attack them, since I'm pretty safe for at least one turn to just see where they go and potentially get the chance to get the defender's advantage if they do attack me. So I'm going to leave them be for now. Now down in Tsuruga, Anikakoji Yoshiyuji has been waiting for a long time to mount his attack on the Sunbu stronghold here, and finally I'm going to start setting it up. I move forward, there's a bridge across a river which is a perfect stopping point for me to sit on, and luckily I run out of movement points at exactly that moment. We can see the Sunbu have a full stack defending the province, the very valuable province, which I'd quite like to take. So hopefully they will attack Yoshiyuji sitting on the bridge, and I'll get an opportunity to defend a river crossing against the enemy army and inflict heavy casualties. Now Takahisa, who is finally done clearing up Umi of the Yonago forces, is going to move to start a new battlefront moving west from Wakasa, invading Tango province. Previously I was using him as a reserve army, but now that I have armies in Iga and Owari hanging around, I decide I don't really need a full general-led reserve army, so Takahisa can get involved, and he can eventually link up with these forces here in Tamba, who are currently positioned to defend against the Yonago, who look like they're about to invade that province. Now down here in Harima, I decided to make a bold move with Takayuki in an attempt to get us in a position to take the province. I moved forward, and what I wanted to do was attack this Takatsuki force to force it to retreat away from the castle, meaning the castle would be isolated. But I ran out of movement points. I thought I could still start the battle using the spear levy. You can see I have enough movement points to go near them and then clearly, in fact, walk even further to the west. But as I reached the destination, the movement aura, the yellow aura, doesn't actually allow me to move any further west than that. So it seems my movement points were being depleted at a faster rate than the game had initially predicted. Quite inconvenient, but it doesn't really matter because they're still in a pretty safe position, even right in the middle of the enemy territory there. Now back in North Shinano, I decided to take units from Kodama and Tanenao's armies and combine them together into one nice, powerful and balanced force, which Tanenao is going to lead. Kodama is going to be responsible for defending North Shinano because, of course, there could still be more attacks, especially from the north and east, where powerful enemy armies have been seen wandering around. I'm going to move up a couple of reinforcements from South Shinano, just because Kodama's force, his leftover forces, aren't really that powerful. It's mostly Yari attendants and a big load of wooden cannons. Nothing really to be impressed about. So I thought if I combine it with a few extra units from other provinces, at least he'll be a little bit more able in the event of a battle. He has a lot of these light guns as well, which aren't very powerful, and you can see I just disbanded a couple of light guns in South Shinano because I think they're wasting my money. They're not very good in battle, so I'd rather just get rid of them. So Tanenao is going to move into a position where next turn he'll have a chance to move out of the province with this powerful battle group. My intention is to head south and attack Kai, held by the Sunpu. I don't know what their strength there is, and I need a couple of turns to regenerate my troops anyway, so there won't be any action for now. Yanago can move a single regiment into North Shinano. Not really sure what they're planning with that guy, but we'll see if it does any damage later on. The Yonago commenced their invasion of Tamba. First they destroy one of my farms. I thought that was all they were going to do, but later in their turn they move closer and look like they're going to attack the castle. So they probably are going to try and assault the province and take it. Luckily I am pretty confident in my defenders there. The Takatsuki don't attack Takayuki's forces hanging around in their territory, so he is safe. Next turn he will have the initiative once again, and the Sado forces unfortunately don't attack Echu and do move towards Hida as I had feared, so I am going to have to chase them down. But first we're going to focus on the situation in Harima. Takayuki is going to attack the castle. My advantage isn't all that large, but I knew that because I have sharpshooters and artillery, I can pummel the enemy and make my advantage be much larger before I actually start my assault. Dedicate 20 minutes of the battle to just reducing their numbers and then attack when I'm definitely going to win. So that's the plan. Let's head onto the battlefield and do it. There is something about the Japanese that makes them both brilliant and horrifying at the same time. In all my days of soldiering, I have ne'er seen more devoted and skilled fighters, ne'er seen a line with so much discipline, and ne'er seen men so eager to follow the rules and earn the respect of their officers. It all sounds quite noble, but in turn, I have ne'er seen soldiers be so bloodthirsty, commanders so merciless, and battles so bloody as the ones I have witnessed in this revolutionary war. There is a hint of ancient savagery about the whole affair that I can't shake nor grow to deem acceptable. So here is the Takatsuki force defending its walls as Takayuki begins his attack. You can see what I'm doing to begin with is pulling up parrot guns onto these nice hilled positions near the castle, where I'll have a nice opportunity to fire not quite into the castle but at least at the castle, which is better than nothing. I've also got a number of attack groups coming from all sorts of different directions. Two here up in the north, one with the parrot guns in the middle there in the east, and another one here coming from the south, being backed up by the spear levy coming in as reinforcements. Those attack groups are a mix of melee and missile units. The idea is just to give myself some versatility, the ability to attack parts of the castle if I see the opportunity from any direction. So my strategy, as I've mentioned, is going to be to just destroy as much of the enemy force as I can without actually advancing on the castle at all. My first plan is to destroy these long stretches of wall which are fully garrisoned by enemy troops. So by destroying the walls, I'll remove a large number of those troops, mainly due to the weird physicsy effects that happen when you destroy walls. We can see here scores of enemy troops thrown from the wall by the collapse of this little front section here, and I can do this all the way along this part of the castle. Looks like some of these guys are coming in to fill the gaps, good for them. So there's at least 3 or 4 sections of the wall I can destroy like this, and every time I do it, it's going to send a whole bunch of enemy troops flying into the sky, and they die when they hit the ground. A massive load of them are killed right here. This is actually very good stuff for me because some of these troops along the wall are the enemy's best troops, especially here right on the end where they have sharpshooters, and the presence of those sharpshooters means I can't bring up my own sharpshooters to start sniping other guys on the walls because they'll fire back. So if I can destroy these sharpshooters, which I almost have, I've killed the vast majority of them, I'll be free to use my own snipers to start taking out enemy men one by one. Once the front set of the walls are gone, it's the next set behind it that is going to be targeted, and it's not going to fare any better. The enemy just stand there, take the shots, and take the casualties as the walls collapse. So it didn't take long for me to destroy both the outer and the inner section of the eastern part of the castle's walls. There go 2 more parts just then, killing a whole bunch more enemy troops. You can see if you look carefully, the enemy actually have their own parrot guns set up next to the Tenchu, but for some reason they never unlimbered them, so they never actually attempted to fire back at my artillery for the entire battle. I had to shift my fire to the north to find more enemy targets to kill. They've got a whole bunch more men garrisoned in the walls facing off to the north, so I'm going to take them out in droves by firing my artillery at them. I don't have such a good line of sight, so it's harder, but slowly but surely I managed to take them out. And as a result of thinning their ranks out, I decided it's finally time to start advancing some of my attack groups on the castle and look for an opportunity to bring this battle to a close. I've still got more time to destroy more enemy troops, but you can see from the balance bar that I don't really need to. I've already got a massive advantage. Now, loads of the enemy's men decided to come and re-garrison the eastern part of the castle, taking out the positions where previously regiments had already been destroyed. An interesting decision by the enemy. It seems they thought my threat from the east was the greatest, but as a result of them coming over here, the sharpshooters, who are all hanging around on the east part of the map, start firing at the guys garrisoning themselves on the wall. You can see we're really far away, and the target these sharpshooters have to hit is absolutely minuscule, so the chance of them actually hitting is tiny. But I've got time to waste. I can let these guys just keep firing off rounds, and slowly but surely they're going to get kills on the enemy. And here in these destroyed sections of the wall, where there's less cover for the enemy, they are in a little bit of trouble. You can see this group of guys standing in the open here is reduced in size by half in just a few seconds whilst under sharpshooter fire. So these little broken up bits are very bad places to stand, and yet enemy troops still choose to do it. Now at this point in the battle, enemy regiments are beginning to rout due to army losses, so some of the guys left inside the castle decide to just leave even after taking a few bits of artillery fire here and there. Chipping away the edges of some of their melee regiments is enough to get them out of the castle entirely. And at this point we've only got a couple of regiments left. One here on the south side was standing around for ages. I eventually fired some shrapnel at it, and that caused them to rout because they lost a couple of men from it. So even though the regiment's still at near full strength, they're not going to fight on because really there's no point. They tried to leave the castle, although unfortunately for them, they're coming down the ramp to where my own troops were positioned ready to actually attack the castle. And they are going to attempt to rout right through this unit, which is not going to go very well for them. They're going to... well, some of them will survive at least, let's say that. They'll take extreme casualties. A few of them get through just because there's so many. So a little bit later, we've got everyone inside the castle. Just a couple of enemy guys remain standing on the Tenchu capture point, refusing to rout. These very brave wooden cannon crews who are just stuck here behind the Tenchu in its shadow. I moved up some line infantry to engage with them in melee because I was actually taking crossfire from attempting to shoot them because I was shooting them from so many angles. Those line infantry eventually blast them at close range, killing them. We didn't lose any of our guys going into melee, so it was an excellent finish to a pretty much perfect battle. The Sioux forces lost almost no one taking this giant castle. We destroyed an entire enemy army. And in fact, the vast majority of the losses we took were from friendly fire, so I have only myself to blame for that. Anyway, Takayuki is victorious, the Takatsuki are now on the back foot, and we're advancing against the Imperial forces. We'll see if I can keep it up next time. So that's all for this episode. We'll see more advances in the eastern part of the war next time on Teppou Republic.